Grace and peace be to you as we continue our midweek Lenten service, this through online experience. I need to add that for those of you that would like to follow along with your own bulletin copy, you should contact Anna at the church office, 920-892-7456, and request to be put on the emailing list, and we'll send you a copy of that for next week. So let us begin as we enter the story across the threshold. We continue on our journey through Lent as we step inside the story of a teacher who turned the world upside down. We put ourselves in the picture of Holy Week so that we might take a closer look and let the ancient story open us to deeper conviction for the call to follow the teacher, Jesus. That last week, Jesus didn't lay low. He put himself out there, susceptible to those who want to trap him, twist his words, get him to say something damning. He cannot turn from his vocation. He is not only a master teacher, but a prophet and a voice of the divine. It is his ability to draw the people to his teaching that pose a threat, a challenge to the authorities. We place ourselves in the crowd this week to be moved and motivated by Jesus for our lives, to get a faithful perspective. What would we have seen, heard, and felt? What do we do now? Let us pray together. We come here to encounter the teachings of Jesus. Many wanted to destroy him for these teachings, and sometimes we too find that his words challenge us, calling us to more than we think we can be or do. Forgive us, O God. Let us be shaped into a new people, made in the mold of justice, not the stamp of Caesar's coin. You entered our story through Jesus. Now help us to enter fully into the story of your kingdom on earth as it is in heaven. Amen. We'll continue by singing the hymn, Lord, Speak to Me that I may speak. Know this, There are people whose lives have been changed completely by this story of love and passion. Transformation is possible. You are forgiven and freed, encouraged and loved by a God who wants you to live fully. Let us enter the passion of Christ and pass the peace of Christ with each other.
Being tested was nothing new for Jesus. During his ministry, he was faced time and again with situations in which he was asked to defend his teachings against the way we've always done it. Indeed, his entire ministry was preceded by temptation. Just after John baptized him, he was led into a wilderness journey and was tempted to use his status as God's son for ends not becoming of a humble servant. No wonder Jesus could recognize deceit in the Pharisees' spies and the Herodians' questions in Jerusalem that last week. He had experienced it before in the form of evil incarnate. Then the Spirit led Jesus up into the wilderness so that the devil might tempt him. After Jesus had fasted for 40 days and 40 nights, he was starving. The tempter came to him and said, "Since you are God's son, command these stones to become bread." Jesus replied, "It's written, people won't live only by bread, but by every word spoken by God." After that, the devil brought him into the holy city and stood him at the highest point in the temple. He said to him, "Since you are God's son, throw yourself down, for it is written, 'I will command my angels concerning you, and they will take you up in their hands so that you won't hit your foot on a stone.'" Jesus replied, "Again, it's written, 'Don't test the Lord your God.'" Then the devil brought him to a very high mountain and showed him all the kingdoms of the world and their glory. He said, "I'll give you all these if you bow down and worship me." Jesus responded, "Go away, Satan, because it's written, 'You will worship the Lord your God and serve only him.'" The devil left him, and angels came and took care of him.
Jesus kept showing up at the temple that week, even after the skirmish in the temple market. You'd think he'd back off, lay low, stay out of the way. His name was on the watch list for sure, had been for some time. I hear that even when he was born, he was perceived as a threat. That's what I hear. Before my time here, though, my allegiance is to Herod, and I've been placed here to help oversee the Jews this week. This Passover party here in the city makes me very nervous. The place is packed. We were instructed to see if we could get this Jesus to say something that would prove he means harm to the state, that he will encourage people to disobey the Roman laws, or that he will create a rebellion, and that'll get ugly. So we were instructed to catch this guy saying something we can charge him with. They teamed us up with some Pharisees, Jewish priests that oversee the rules for their own people. These particular priests, they're no more than spies, I would say. They want him shut down as much as Herod does, but they lay it on thick. I tell you, cozying up, telling him that he's such an amazing teacher, I decided to stay out of the way. It actually makes my stomach turn, all this deceitful stuff. I'm sure this guy, he'll go off the rails and end up in prison or worse. I just hope it's over quick. What's that? What did he just say? Well, this is something. He's got the Pharisees reaching into their pockets to get a denarii. Ha! Well, I'll be. This guy is good. Nothing wrong with that answer. They won't be able to get him today. Actually, I'd have to say I'm curious. There's something about him. I wouldn't mind hearing more. Perhaps I'll volunteer to keep an eye on him. Although what I really want to do is just be around him and hear what else he has to say. There's something about him.
They certainly were after Jesus that week. Everybody, it seemed, wanted to trap him in his words. And the question that was posed to him, the one that we unpack and talk about a little bit in our time together here tonight, concerned the lawfulness of paying taxes to Caesar. And the question was asked, Rabbi, is it lawful to pay taxes to Caesar? They thought that they had Jesus impaled on the horns of a dilemma. For what would happen if Jesus would have said, yes, it's lawful to pay taxes to Caesar? Well, Jesus would have been branded as a Roman lackey, and that would have immediately reduced his credibility in the eyes of his fellow compatriots, countrymen and women. He would have said, no, it's not lawful to pay taxes to Caesar. The authorities would have been ready to clap him in irons and arrest him, for he would have been urging sedition and rebellion in the refusal to pay taxes to Caesar. And as Jesus often does in the Gospels, he responds with a question himself. Would you show me the coin? Whose image, whose likeness is on it? And it said that they produced a coin. And that had to be an uncomfortable moment for them, because it meant that in their possession as righteous and pious Jews, they had coinage on their person that had the inscription and the name of Caesar Tiberius. Now, naming coins was a fairly big deal back in those days. If you could get your name or your face on a coin, that meant you were a pretty big deal. That meant you were in charge. If you got to name the coinage, if your face was on the coinage, you were the one calling the shots. And Jesus asked the question, whose likeness, whose name is on the coin? And they said, the emperor's. And Jesus answered, to give to the emperor the things that are the emperor's, and give to God the things that are God's. So what belongs to the emperor? The coin belongs to the emperor. It's got his name and his face on it. Give the coin back to the emperor. It belongs to him. Give him what's due. But then what belongs to God? What belongs to God is the ultimate loyalty and obedience. Everything else belongs to God. And in that moment, the people that were trying to trap Jesus on this question, I suspect, knew they were had. Everything rightly belongs to God. That in itself is a fairly far-reaching statement, one that has some pretty radical implications. Are we ready to give ultimate loyalty and obedience to God? We may give the coin back to Caesar, it's got his name on it, but everything else, the ultimate loyalty, the ultimate obedience belongs to God. And I wonder if the Pharisees and the people from the party of Herod squirmed just a little bit when they heard that. May God's grace and Spirit be with us as we wrestle with these words of Jesus and the claim that they have on our own lives. Amen. We'll continue by singing, "Turn Your Eyes Upon Jesus." We remember today the teachings of Jesus, and we give thanks to God for the power of his words and actions that have transformed so many lives. We remember today those who teach and preach in pursuit of right living and right relationship. And now let us call in our mind's eye, perhaps with eyes closed if you are comfortable doing that, those people in our lives that need our advocacy, presence, and prayers. I invite you to lift aloud names or places that you would add to our prayers today. For the things that we have named aloud, and for those things which we have brought before you in the silence of our hearts, we ask in the name of the one who taught us to pray, saying, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. Let us continue by singing again the words of the hymn, Turn Your Eyes Upon Jesus.
Turn your eyes
Hear now the word of the Lord concerning the offering. This is, we find it in Paul's first letter to the Corinthians in chapter 4, verses 1 through 2. This is how one should regard us as servants of Christ and stewards of the mysteries of God. Moreover, it is required of stewards that they be found trustworthy. We now receive our offering. Let us bow our heads as we prepare to dedicate these gifts. Loving God, in this Lenten season, as we stand here in the shadow of the cross, we are reminded how costly love can be. We pray that a measure of costliness may be seen in our own gifts, and may they clearly reflect our love and our gratitude. And we ask for this in Jesus' name. Amen. We'll continue now by singing verse 1 of the hymn, I Love to Tell the Story. This season, we are putting a frame around a bit of life. We section off a scene. We look long into a face to see what we can see, to know what we can know. Just as we have done with the art and story today, zoom in your focus on the art and story of life all through the week. The divine artist offers us such poignant beauty each day in our own stories, in the stories around us, in the heartbreak and pain and joy and awe of a simple moment turned significant. That's what happens when we put a frame around it. We zoom in for an existential close-up and search for clues for living this life with more attention and intention. May you be blessed by the sacred frames that surround the moments of your life that you dare not miss. Amen.